Hello everyone, I'm Agnost, and today I'll be doing the PokeRogue Mono Gen 1 challenge. The self-imposed rules are as follows. 1. I can only use Pokemon from the Kanto region. Seems like an obvious rule, to be honest. Number 2. I may catch any Pokemon, but I cannot use any other Pokemon outside of the Kanto region. You might be wondering why this rule has to be here. You'll see later on in the video. 3. My starters cannot be legendary or mythical. I put this here because it would feel like cheating if I put Articuno as one of my starters. Now, you might be wondering, what are my starters? Well, here they are. First up is Charmander, with the ability Blaze to boost up fire type moves when in a pinch during battle. The moves he'll start off with is Bitter Blade to heal off of sticky situations, Ember as a filler move, Dragon Dance for a potential sweep, and Earth Power for coverage against rock and electric types. Nature being lax since most moves that OHKO him are physical. Our second starter joining me will be Bulbasaur with the ability Overgrow to get him out of tough situations with grass type moves. He'll have Tackle, Growl, and Vine, which are our fillers, and Earth Power for some more coverage against steel types. I decided that Bulbasaur is good enough without stat changes, hence it being docile in nature. Next up is Poliwag, with the ability Water Sword, which nullifies all water type moves, and it will be a good switch-in option. Poliwag will have the Water Gun, Hypnosis, and Water Sport, which are all filler, and including Wild Bolt Storm, to cover the future weakness of Water and Flying type mons. Poliwag will have the Naive nature to make it eat faster while in rain. Lastly, but not least, Rhyhorn, with the Lightning Rod ability, which is also another great tool for double battles and a great switch-in. Tackle and Smackdown being filler, plus with Ice Hammer to counter Rayquaza and Schwarp for survivability. Of course, it will be rocking with the Adamant nature to further boost its attack. The first Rebel fight was easy, but we need to watch out for what would be her Oshawott and Pidgey, who could become huge threats later in the game. Not long after, I found the fifth member of our team, Nidoran Male, which should now have the decent ability Rivalry, which does damage based on gender. Starting with the moves, Peck and Growl and Poison Sting, which is pretty basic, with a serious nature which isn't too bad. A couple more floors later, and we were able to find Doduo, who is rocking up with the ability Early Bird, who will also have the moves with Peck, Quick Attack, Fury Attack, and Growl. Sadly, we get the worst nature it can get, which is a Boltman. We then fight our first gym leader, Silent, with a Cottonee and Pansage. This would have been an easier fight if I didn't run out of PP for Bitter Blade. Otherwise, it wasn't so bad. While making our way through the grassy field, we got a Master Ball. Poggers. It's a surprise tool that'll help us later. Trust me, it's going to be very useful later on. Right after that, we have our second fight with our rival, with Oshawott evolved and Pidgey as well, but didn't expect our third Pokemon to be a Draudigan, which isn't bad, but really tough early game / mid game. It was a pretty close fight, but thanks to Charmander evolving into Charmeleon, and followed by Bulbasaur evolving into Ivysaur. Right after that, Nidoran evolved into Nidorino. 10 levels later, we found our first evil team fight that we're fighting, which is Team Aqua. I'm not too thrilled, but it's easily manageable to take down. Later, Poliwag evolved into Poliwhirl. Followed by Doduo evolving into Dodrio. You might not know, but Dodrio will be a lot of help wiping out wild mons. Not long after, Ivysaur evolved into Venusaur. And later, Charmeleon evolved into Charizard. While here, we found a map, which will allow us to manipulate where we can go with the map, which make life easier. Our second gym leader being Katie, who specializes in bug types. Dodrio held its own, and Charizard later helping out finished by Rhyhorn. I am met with my first choice, either the jungle or meadow. I picked the jungle since I'm hoping I can find some easy encounters while getting on my way to the last level. I then fight my rival a third time, which is somewhat tricky. Duat evolved into Samurott and Pidgeotto evolved into Pidgeot. with one new member being Pawniard, who will later be King Gambit, which will threaten me. Jordan being a wall, as always, but I stalled him out with Venusaur. I would later find out that Venusaur is faster than Pidgeot. I don't know why it put that in my script, but it was interesting. After that, Rhyhorn finally evolved into Rhydon. Sadly, we can't use Rhyperior since that's in Gen 4. I soon found the Moonstone to evolve Nidorino to Nidoking. I fight my first Aqua Adamant, and surprisingly, Dodrio held its own despite being minus attack nature. Venusaur took care of the 2 Sharpedos and the Glowfish. My third gym leader being Tate, which uses Psychic-type Pokemon. Tate having a really strong team with a Gallade and a Solrock as of now. Dodrio gets one-shot by a Stone Edge. I send in Poliwhirl for the Hydro Pump against Solrock, but Gallade blocks it, and, well, I can't really do anything. Gallade gets a Sharpness boosted plus critical hits like a cut and hits my Charizard really hard, making it faint. I send in Venusaur, hoping I could get the Sleep Powder and make it switch, which she does, due to Xatu. Xatu is now asleep, and I use Sleep Seed on it. Now it's Xatu's on a timer. I use Power Whip, but Xatu kills my Venusaur with an Aeroblast. I then send in Nidoking, remembering that Nidoking learned Shadow Ball later on in the game. He used Future Sight for some reason. My Oko, not really Oko, but to hit him with Shadow Ball. I hit Jumiko 2 more times with Shadow Ball. But Nidoking fell, sadly. I then send in Rhydon, which is a pretty good attacker for Jumiko. I predict her switching out to Blade and use Earthquake. She sends back Jumiko again, Charmander has no choice but to attack, and I use Rock Blast to destroy Charmander. Next up is Soul Rock. I thought this would be the end of my journey, but luckily I only had Side Shock, which focuses on defense rather than special defense. So I use Shore Up to make sure I want to get crit death, and I use Rock Blast to finish off Soul Rock. I later then find a Butterfree, who I replaced Nidoking with, since he was slowing down our entire team. With her ability being Compound Eyes, so her moves are more accurate, and having Gust and Harden being their filler, and Air Slash and Tailwind for good support. Obviously, rocking with the Modest Nature, special attack is going to be great for Butterfree. I then fight my rival a fourth time. Things are going to get a lot harder this time, with Samurott being terrestrialized into a water type, and Pawniard fully evolving into King Gambit, which is very threatening. I send out Poliwhirl for the Drain Punch kill, but she also predicted that Jordan would also pop out and killed Poliwhirl indirectly with Rough Skin. I then later sent out Rhydon, predicting the switch into Samurott and use Earthquake. I take out a good chunk of health from Samurott, so I sent in Venusaur to tank Aqua Tail to the face. I then predict another slip, and I get Sleep Powder on. I then use Earth Power to KO Gambit. Pidgeot also came out, but this time Pidgeot's now faster. But we got the Sleep Powder off, but the Lumberry also got rid of the sleep, so we had no choice but to switch into Rhydon again. I predict the Earthquake again, but I didn't think it was going to actually happen, so I used Rock Blast instead to actually confirm the kill. Samurott OHKOs my Butterfree, and I have no choice but to send out Dodrio, hoping that it's faster. Switch to Gimmighoul, which is our 5th Pokemon, and you might be wondering, oh, I'll be fighting a Goldingo, right? Not apparently in this one, because Goldingo never even came up in our team at all. He really just kind of stood up, so, I mean, that was weird. Anyways, I take out Drill Peck with Pidgeot, and I use Drill Peck on Jordan again. But, now we have another threat. Jordan now has Dragon Darts, which is really scary this time. And I send out Venusaur this time to sleep Jordan, and I use Earth Power to finish him off. Sends out Samurott. I'm faster though, and I use Earth Power to finish off Samurott. I didn't want to use Power Whip because it was too inaccurate and I didn't want to risk the loss. And that was my 4th rival fight. I later find a Water Stone to fully evolve Poliwhirl into Poliwrath, who will now be our hardest hitting team member in our team. I also find my first Max Mushroom, which I use on Venusaur, of course, since Eternatus is going to be really hard, and without a G-Max Venusaur, it's going to be really hard to kill him. I also went into the temple and caught a Gengar. Gengar, who is now has the ability Curse Body, which any physical contact moves will be removed. You started off with Shadow Ball, Shadow Punch, Dream Eater, and Destiny Bond. Destiny Bond would be pretty good. And sadly we didn't get a good nature, but he'll be Modest Nature later. We're now fighting Fantina, and she sends out Mimikyu first. I go for the Leech Seed, predicting that she would switch into a different mon, and she did. She went to Dragapult. Now I'm playing the risky game of Dragapult just constantly spamming Cannon Force, and I just keep trying to hit him. I then later take out Dragapult with my 1 Earth Power. Her Spiritomb comes out next, and Spiritomb is a pretty tricky Pokemon. We don't have access to Fairy-type Pokemon since I didn't really think about having a Fairy-type on my team. Spiritomb takes out my Venusaur, and Rhydon was already taken out before this fight even happened. So I had Charizard use Bitter Blade, and it started using Psychic. I then used Dragon Dance to set up for a potential sweeper against her entire team. And Charizard lives a Shadow Ball to the face in the red, and I was able to get out of Spiritomb. Now Charizard is in Blaze range, I can now one-shot most of her team, with Mismagius being gone, and I healed back up all my HP again. I used Bitter Blade on Drifblim, and Drifblim is also out as well. Mimikyu comes out, knowing the skies will be up. I can't really OHKO with the Mimikyu at all, but I do some damage. Mimikyu goes for a Phantom Force, but I have Force move. I use Bitter Blade to take out Mimikyu finally. I fight Archie as well. Archie sends out Lanoon, which I didn't know Archie would get, so I sent a Poliwrath for the Drain Punch, but also predicted me to switch in and send a Crobat. I decided to stay in for the 2 Hydro Pumps, but I missed both and Crobat gets some good major damage in. I'm forced to switch out into Rhydon. I predict to switch in when I go for Earthquake again. I've noticed a pattern that every time when I'm faced against a flying type and Rhydon is out, I always know they always go to switch to a water type Pokemon, so I immediately just go for Earthquake, knowing that they do that. Dodrio is up against a Mega Sharpedo, but sadly Sheer Force is just not enough for it to keep it alive. Man, that defense nature really did help, huh? Anyways, we predict Sharpedo leaving, but I also didn't predict that Crobat would be coming out again, so I used Sleep Powder, and well, you already know where this is going to go. I send in Rhydon again, and I am predicting another switch in with Earthquake, and I finish off Mega Sharpedo. Then Wailord comes out. I thought it was faster than Wailord, and surprisingly Rhydon wasn't faster, and Wailord outsped with Surf and OHKOs my Rhydon. I then used Wild Bolt Storm to take some good damage out of Tentacruel. And luckily I got a high roll on half HP, and Tentacruel is out. Crobat's still asleep, and I was able to use Wild Bolt Storm again on Crobat. Sadly, Crobat woke up, and Poliwrath is also out as well. I then send in Charizard, knowing that in the rain he won't be able to do anything, so I start setting up Dragon Dances so I'm faster than most Bonds. I then use Dual Wing Bait to finish off Crobat. He then sends out his Alolan Muck, which I could counter directly, but he had Poison Touch, which was bad. I used Bitter Blade to cover some of my HP, but he had Sucker Punch, which will beat me to the punch anyways. I think what I should have done in the future was to use Earth Power first, and then Earth Power again, and I would not have lost my Charizard. But oh well. I then send my G-Max Venusaur, and I go for another Earth Power. One Muck is now down. He then sends his Lanoon, and he goes for the Double Edge. I get the Sleep Powder off, and Lanoon is asleep now. I go for the Leech Seed, and now I'm getting health back from him. But Lanoon woke up at the second turn, and they have Double Edged my Venusaur dead. I then realized that Gengar was in a really tough situation, and I needed to be faster than him at all times. And it has high horsepower. Luckily, high horsepower missed, and I was able to get the kill on Lanoon. And I get an easy kill on Wailord with Shadow Ball. I'm not gonna lie, that was a really close fight, and I don't know if I could have done it without that high horsepower missing. I then get my second Max Measure. My choice was between Charizard and Gengar, and ultimately I thought Charizard needed it most more than Gengar. Since Gengar's not a modest nature, it can probably hold its own, and Charizard definitely needs the boost in HP and stats. I then fight Berg, who also specializes in bug types, which will be our second bug type gym leader. But it won't be too hard since Dodrio can take care of most mons, and G-Max Charizard's out. But since it's also still raining, his fire types won't do as much damage as it did previously. So I go for the Dual Wing Bait instead, which is also stab and super effective. Sadly, I realized how inaccurate Dual Wing Bait is, and I didn't get the kill off of him before he got the Toxic on me. So sadly, I was Toxic as well. He then sold in Scolipede, and I able to hit him again once with Dual Wing Bait, I guess Scolipede. Then sends in Excelgor, and I crit him again with Dual Wing Bait. And sends in Escavalier, and I go for the Bitter Blade to get some of my HP up before Toxic overtakes me. He then sends in Livani, and for some reason I thought Dual Wing Bait was the best option, but it missed, and we got Toxic to death. But it's fine, it's the last Pokemon, and Dodrio comes down and finishes with the Drill Peck. I later then find a Healing Charm, which will further boost my healing options with Leech Seed and Bitter Blade. I then fight my rival a 5th time, and this time, Samurott is now considered a boss mon, and who was also still water terrestrialized.
She sends in King Gambit, of course, and then predict the Sleep Powder onto him. I Sleep Powder him again, and I go for the Earth Power to KO King Gambit again. Honestly, her King Gambit isn't really much of a problem, but her next Pokemon coming out will be a bigger problem. Want to guess who that is? Of course, it's Rayquaza, and it has Dragon Ascent. But thank God it missed, and it get the Sleep Powder. But he used up his Lumberry, which is good. We can still have more opportunities to get him with status conditions. Venusaur is now out, and I'm forced to send in Rhydon. Rhydon has Ice Hammer, which is pretty good against Rayquaza. Rayquaza is down to its last health bar with just one move in that general. I didn't predict the Rayquaza switching in, so I could have predicted him switching in with Samurai again, but I didn't do the Earthquake and instead used Ice Hammer. But I get a good safe substitution with Poliwrath due to thanks to Water Absorb. I go for Wild Bolt Storm again, and I take a good chunk out of Rayquaza's final HP, but he hits the Hurricane and it KOs my Poliwrath. I then send in Dodrio to finish it off, but she sends in Pigshot this time, sacking her another mod for me. Then she sends Strodigan in, and, well, I'm kind of forced to use Sword Stance to boost up, and I try to take out Strodigan as fast as possible. What I didn't know is that Strodigan had Thunder Fang, which would change my entire game plan entirely. But Drillback didn't do much damage, and, well, I was forced to switch to Rhydon once again. I then predict that she's going to send in Samurai again, and I go for Earthquake, KOing it. Now it's me versus Ursulina. Ursulina and I both have a good edge against each other. So, I use Ice Hammer to take it down, and then I use Shore Up to stall for more turns. Now Ursulina is a lot faster than me because of Hammer Arm. I finish it off with the Ice Hammer, but it lives off of 1 HP, and I still get the kill with Earthquake. Sends her final Pokemon Rayquaza, but she gets outraged before I even get a hit on him. I then send in Gengar and finish it off with a Shadow Ball. I forgot that she still had her Strodigan on, and I finished Strodigan off with 2 more Shadow Balls. And honestly, things only get worse from here. When I was strolling through the plains, the boss Pokemon here was Latios, and I was not expecting Latios to be in this run, so I didn't really think that I would be fighting Psychic-type Pokemon. But I predict that maybe Gengar was faster than Latios, but Latios gets the Mist Ball on him, so I switch it to Rhydon, so I go for Ice Hammer. But Rhydon also gets one-shot by Mist Ball. I think you see where this is going. No matter what, Latios is faster than all of my Pokemon, and I can't hit anything for him. I'm forced to send in Charizard, so I go for the Dual Wing Bay. I then get 1 HP bar down. The Latios just made Latios even more faster and stronger, and we're kind of forced to send in G-Max with Venusaur. I then later found out that, well, I can send it use Power Whip and almost take out its HP, but I can't do anything at all. I then later found out that I have a Master Ball. I'm so glad I kept this Master Ball, or else this run would have been dead in a long shot. I then fight Archie a second time. This time, Archie now has a Ludicolo with a boss, and Armaldo, which I did not see coming honestly, but hey, it's a nice change of pace with water types being everywhere. So I'm not complaining about Armaldo sending out against my Dodrio, since Dodrio was able to 2-hit Armaldo. He then sends his famous Mega Sharpedo, and I take out 1 HP from him, but he OHKOs my Dodrio once again. Not too surprised to be honest. I send in Poliwrath for the Drain Punch kill, but switches off to Ludicolo. I almost take off his HP if it weren't for the fact that Drain Punch wasn't so bad. He gets a Leaf Storm off and lowers his special attack while taking out my Poliwrath. I then send in Gengar for a Sludge Bomb kill, but he predicted it and go for a Mega Sharpedo, but I KO'd him anyways. He then sent in Kyogre, the most hardest Pokemon I probably have to fight in this entire team. Honestly, probably harder than Rayquaza. I use Sludge Bomb and luckily I get the Poison Prot on him, so awesome on my part. But did not go over past his health bar, so I am forced to hit Sludge Bomb again, and Gengar is dead. I then send in Venusaur to finish it off with Power Whip. Not until Kyogre gets one last Hurricane off. Politoed, which is an insta-kill for me. But it lived on 1 HP once again with Power Whip, and Politoed just being an absolute tank. I then use Earth Power to try to take out Politoed, but switches into Huntail. I then use Power Whip on Huntail, and then he sends out Ludicolo again. Knowing that it's neutral, I use Power Whip again on Ludicolo, and Ludicolo is now down. I then send in Politoed, and I finish it off with an Earth Power. Honestly, this fight wasn't so bad, but the scariest part about it was probably Kyogre. I then fight my last gym leader, Erica, which isn't really too bad because, well, we have Dodrio here. Dodrio one-shots Sunflower with one Drill Peck. Then sends our Grass Terra Tangrowth, and surprisingly enough, Tangrowth actually tanks the Drill Peck really well, and was actually able to do a parting shot. She then sends in her Jumpluff, which I used Drill Peck. Luckily, I had Grip Claw and took her Sharp Beak, so now I have 2 Sharp Beaks in my Dodrio. She then sends in Leafeon, and then she's dead. Vileplume also gets one-shot, including his Victory Bell as well. She then sends in Tangrowth, and I one-shot it, and I also take a berry from her Tangrowth as well. She then sends in Jumpluff one more time, and I one-shot it with Drill Peck. Honestly, Erica is just a sweep, and Dodrio is just the best. I then fight Lorelei, who is now the first member of the Elite Four, and it's my time to shine. Luckily, it's the Kanto Elite Four, and I'm actually using a Kanto team, so it should be somewhat balanced to what their types would be. So, she sent out Sandslash, and luckily enough, Sandslash actually tanked it, but thanks to Rain, it would have actually OHKO'd. Coming in Slowbro, I go for the Bitter Blade and didn't get much damage in. Shell Side Arm with Quick Draw on Slowbro, and I get in with the Earth Power. Slowbro getting all that HP again, I go for Earth Power again, and Slowbro is out. While I'm doing this commentary over this battle, I just want to say, scripting is really hard, and honestly, I've been trying to figure out how to script Pokemon battles, so if you feel like I've been saying stuff out of my butt, well, there you have it, because, well, I really don't know how else I could really script a Pokemon battle without saying the same thing over and over again. But anyways, Jinx is about to get killed by a Bitter Blade thanks to Dragon Dance. She then sends his Frostmoth, and I go for Bitter Blade again. Frostmoth being the glass cannon she is, I go for Bitter Blade one more time, and Frostmoth is now down. She then sends her Lapras, which is now pretty scary, but I go for Bitter Blade. It would have been scary if it was like Water Ice, but since it was Terra Ice, it's only a purely Ice type, and I can now safely use Bitter Blade to recover HP. For some reason, Lapras didn't have a Water type move, and I still don't know why to this day. I then finish it off with Earth Power. My Bitter Blade PP was running out, and I had her last Pokemon, Sandslash. I finished it off with Earth Power, and that was the Lorelei fight. Not gonna lie, Lorelei was pretty easy, and G-Max Charizard was the heavy carry for this team. Our next fight is against Bruno, who specializes in Rock and Fighting type Pokemon. Surprisingly, Bruno's rocking with the Fighting Terra Flamingo, and also an Alolan Golem who is Rock Electric. I sent in Rhyhorn to take out Alolan Golem, but I predicted that he would switch, and I use Earthquake, and I get some good heavy damage against Machamp. He then uses Meteor Mash on my Gengar. I didn't think he would have Meteor Mash, but thank God it did, because, well, Gengar was still alive, by the way. I used Sludge Bomb to finish off Alolan Golem, and then his next Pokemon would be Flamigo. I then take it out with Psychic Noise, but it lived on 1 HP, and thank God it missed its Mega Kick, or else I would have been in grave trouble. I used Psychic Noise one more time, and Flamigo is down. Then sends us Conkeldurr. Knowing that I cannot OHKO Conkeldurr, I go for a Destiny Bond and go for an OHKO against Conkeldurr anyways. This is what I meant by Destiny Bond being really useful, since I can take out really huge threats like Conkeldurr. I send out G-Max Charizard against his Hitmonlee, and I go for 2 dual Wing Beats against Hitmonlee. Hitmonlee is down, and I go for Hitmonchan. But I miss, and he gets the Focus Punch, which is actually the first time that ever happened to me before. I get the dual Wing Beat again. Surprisingly, Hitmonchan actually died in the first shot. I usually Hitmonchan's usually defense. Anyways, Machamp also dies, and that was the end of Bruno's fight. Once again, Charizard and Gengar being the heavy carry.
The third Elite Four member being Agatha, I now have to set up for Dragon Dance, as Spiritomb, once again, is now not Dark type, but just a pure Ghost type. I could have sent in Gengar for this, but I didn't really want to risk Gengar dying. I set up 2 Dragon Dances and got too greedy, and I got 3 shotted by Shadow Ball. I sent in Gengar, knowing that Gengar was going to hit for Shadow Ball, but she sends in Marowak, who is a pure Ghost Terra, and I still OHKO it. I then use Shadow Ball against Skeledirge, and I get a critical hit, plus a super effective hit on Skeledirge, who is now dead. I thought my Gengar was faster, but actually her Gengar was faster and kills me with Hex. I send in Rhyhorn, but switches out to Crobat. I should have saw this coming, to be honest, but this is the first time they ever sent a flying type against my Rhyhorn. I then use Rock Blast against Crobat, and it does some pretty good damage, and Crobat's down. She sends out her Spiritomb once again, and I go for Earthquake, and surprisingly, I was faster than Spiritomb. I could always underestimate how Spiritomb is faster than Rhydon, but it really isn't. Gengar uses Hex, and surprisingly, Rhydon actually lives a special defense, and I kill it. She then sends in Weezing, and at this point, it's all about me shoring up and using Rock Blast to kill it off. I'm sorry, this part in particular is really long because I kept missing and he just kept healing up. And I don't know, man, it really sucked, honestly. It was really boring, so I just tried to go as fast as I can. I went for Ice Hammer, but it did some good damage, but it started using Belch, and it started using its berries. I thought I was going to die, but Ice Hammer kills it. And that was the Agatha fight. I now face the last Elite Four member, Lance, who specializes in Dragon and Flying type Pokemon. He sends out his Aerodactyl, trying to get the OHKO on my G-Max Charizard. I get 1 Dragon Dance off, and thank God I did, because I get the Dragon Claw off, half HP. Scared that I was going to use Stone Edge, but it missed, and I was able to KO it again. He then sends in his Gyarados, and I go for 1 more Dragon Dance to see if I can do enough damage. He uses Brine, which isn't really that good, but he also is almost past half health. He goes for Brine again, and this time I will be dead next turn, and he gets to heal up too. So, I send in Gengar. He uses Brine once again, and I go for a Thunderbolt, which kills Gyarados. Then sends in Dragonite, and I go for a Destiny Bond, predicting that Gengar was not going to have a chance against Dragonite. And obviously Dragonite was his strongest Pokemon here. So I go for 2 Destiny Bonds to predict that he would kill, and Dragonite is now gone. Like I said, Destiny Bond is a really good move, and it's really, really awesome. I send in Rhydon against Noivern, and Rhydon tanks a Boom Burst to the face and goes Ice Hammer against Noivern, and Noivern is down. He then sends in Dracovish, which is now a pure Dragon type plus Terra, and his Dragon Tail, Dragon Hammer is now stronger. I don't know if it was Dragon Tail or Dragon Hammer. I have to check the coding after that. Not the coding, recording. Man, it sucks doing things on script, man. I can't read all my handwriting. Anyways, he sends out a Exeggutor, which is now also a pure Dragon type, and thanks to that, we can now Leech Seed it, getting rid of its grass weakness. I'm not gonna lie, some of the Pokemon that turn into Dragon types are really horrible, and I don't know what they were thinking. But anyways, I was able to get the Leech Seed off, I ate my Enigma Berry, and I eat his Citrus Berry. I go for the Earth Power, and, well, he's not dead yet, so I get the kill off with Leech Seed. And that was the Lance fight, but it's not over yet with 1 more Dracovish, but we just kill it off with Earth Power. And that was the Lance fight. It was pretty difficult, but Rhydon clutched it up for us. I send in Dogio first against his Alakazam, and I go for a Drill Peck knowing that it would kill Alakazam. He predicted it and switched to Nose Pass, which quadruple resists flying type moves. I then send in Rhydon to get rid of Probopass. I don't know why I keep getting mixing up with Rhydon and Rhyhorn, but I don't know. He then sends his most superior Rhydon, Rhyperior, against us, and it was kind of fitting that he also had a Rhyperior than him. It was Ground Terra, so it doesn't have the Rock type weakness, so it's only super effective against 1 type. I go for the Sleep Powder against Probopass, and Probopass wakes up with another Lumberry. I sleep him once again, and he wakes up again with the Lumberry again. He goes for a Steel Beam, halving his HP, and I go for Earth Power to KO him. He then sends out his Mega Pidgeot, which surprisingly isn't his Bossmon, and I put it to sleep. Sadly though, he used a Lumberry and he was able to wake up. I sent in Rhydon for this, and I go for Ice Hammer. Knowing that both situations he was going to either send in Rhyperior or stay in with Mega Pidgeot for both super effective hits with Ice Hammer. I then send back in Gigantamax Venusaur, which is a horrible play since Drill Run really kills my Gmax Venusaur. I send in Poliwrath, and I go for a Hydro Pump. Alakazam tanks it pretty well, but I can't really want to risk it since it can OHKO my Poliwrath. I send in Gmax Charizard, and he goes for a Psyche. I go for Dragon Claw, and for some reason it went for Hidden Power, and it was not super effective. He then sends his Arcanine with Intimidate. Now he is scary. It is also Fire Terra. I go for a Dragon Dance, and he goes for Extreme Speed. His Extreme Speed hit really hard since he got a crit on one, and, well, I didn't think I was going to live, so I went for a Dragon Claw, and he just destroys me immediately with his Flare Blitz. I then send in Poliwrath for this, and I go for a Hydro Pump. He then switches out for Mega Pidgeot, and he's actually faster than me, and he gets a critical hit with Air Slash as well. I send in Gengar, and he goes for Agility. Thank God he did, because I was able to kill him off with Thunderbolt. Then sends in his Rhyperior once again, and I am forced to go in a situation where I have to go for Destiny Bond. Rhyperior is down thanks to Destiny Bond, and we get to see his other Pokemon. I go for Dodrio against his last Pokemon, Ho-Oh, which is now also a Fire Terra. He goes for Overheat, and thank God it didn't kill Dodrio, because Dodrio being the god he is, he goes for Fly, and I could have predicted to go back into Rhydon. Man, I suck with names. Anyways, Dodrio feigns to Fly, and I send in Rhydon one last time. He goes for Overheat one more time, but Rhydon tanks it like a boss and goes for Rock Blast. His last Pokemon being Arcanine. I thought this was the end of my run, but he actually used Extreme Speed, and I was able to use Shore Up to recover most of my HP. He goes for Overheat one more time, and I go for Earthquake, thus ending Champion Blue and the Cancel Elite Four. And now onward to our last rival fight. This rival fight is no joke. She is hard, with Samurott now having 3 HP instead of 2 as a boss, and now Terrestrialize. I send in Venusaur, of course, predicting that Kingambit will be sent out, and I 2-hit Earth Power on the Kingambit, knowing that I didn't really have to use Sleep Powder on it. She then sends her god, Mega Rayquaza, the hardest Pokemon to kill. He uses Dragon Ascent against my Rhydon, and I tank it like a beast. I go for Shore Up, because he was going to do Dragon Outrage, and I go for another Shore Up. He's then confused, and then his defenses and special defense is now lowered. I take the chance, and I go for Earthquake, and I thought he was going to switch up, but he didn't, which was very weird, honestly. Anyways, I go for another Shore Up, and thank God it hit itself in confusion. I go for an Ice Hammer, and it went for Outrage one more time, and I was able to KO it with just one Ice Hammer thanks to the true Double Dragon Ascent that he used to lower its defense. He then sends in Samurott, and I'm forced to KO to sack my Rhydon. I then send in my Gmax Venusaur, and I go for Sleep Powder. Big Shot is now asleep, and I was able to send in Charizard. He uses Hurricane, and I go for a I'm really doing this from hand, so I don't know. I go for a Dragon Claw, predicting that Samurott would be sent out next. I go for Poliwrath with the Water Absorb, and I go for Wild Bolt Storm. His special defense raise. Also, if you notice, I actually used Dragon Claw 2 times in a row. That's because I was able to find a multi-hit lens, and I put it on my Charizard because why not? It'll be really good for the Eternatus fight. I get the Dynamax Punch, surprisingly, and he's confused. Sadly, it snapped out of confusion with the Lumberry, and I go for a Drain Punch, and it was faster, and I KO Samurott. I told you, Poliwrath was going to be really important later on. I was going for the Dynamic Punch, but I failed, and I didn't know that I ran out of PP. Sadly, I go for a Drain Punch once again, but Druddigon finishes off. I go for 2 Dragon Claws once again against Druddigon, and Druddigon uses Dragon Darts, almost KOing my Gmax Charizard. I go for Dragon Claw one more time, KOing both my Charizard and her Druddigon, due to Rough Skin. She then sends in Pidgeot, and I send in my Gengar, to finish it off with Thunderbolt. But she sends in Ursaluna to counter it, So I'm forced to send in my G-Max Venusaur. He goes for high horsepower, but I go for Sleep Powder, and so it goes to sleep. But it has one berry, of course, so I go for Sleep Powder again, and I hit it. I then go for a Power Whip, and Ursaluna wakes up first try and goes for Thrash. I realize that I can KO it with Power Whip if it doesn't miss, and I did. Pidgeot finishes off my G-Max Venusaur with Hurricane, and I'm forced to go up against with my Gengar. I go for Thunderbolt, and I take out 1 HP bar. He goes for Sandsear Storm, which would have KO'd my Gengar, but it missed, and I go for Thunderbolt one more time, thus ending the rival Ivy fight. I then fight Eternatus once and for all. My god, I am so sorry. But honestly, this is going to be my outro because honestly, G-Max Venusaur is already a GG in my book since Leech Seed and Sleep Powder is really good. And I thought Rhydon was going to get a kill, but honestly, no, he just got wiped out. Anyways, I send in Venusaur, knowing that he's just going to tank all of those moves. I go for Sleep Power, and I take advantage of this opportunity, and I profit off of Leech Seed. Not Leech Seed, Leech Seed. Man, there's so many Pokemon names that sound alike. Anyways, I just wanted to say thank you guys all for watching if you made it this far. And I really do appreciate you guys watching out. Also, it wouldn't hurt for you guys to like and subscribe. Hey, maybe even ring the bell to hit the notification. As you can see, Turnitus has a second phase with 5 HP bars, but doesn't really stand a chance against Leech Seed anyways. And Poliwrath is just kind of there, so it's really funny, honestly. This was Acno speaking, and I just want to say, have y'all a great day / night. And yeah, see ya. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Also, I wanted to say, watch to the very end. I have a quick announcement to make as of right now. Walter, put your dick away, Walter. We don't have time to show me your dick, Walter. Please. Please show me your dick, Walter. This bit is so stupid. I don't know why I put this at the end, honestly. But yeah, have fun. Deuces.